Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third Zoom. We are a relatively small group, but we are really progressing nicely. And today we have Shawn O'Connor, who will be presenting to us with the help of Jennifer Castillo. Thank you, Jennifer. And please hold on to your questions. You can drop them in the chat if you wish, but don't expect them to be answered at this moment. They will be answered during the Q&A. So that will afford Shawn the opportunity to go through his presentation as he has presented, as he's expected. Also, as we're watching this presentation, I encourage you to think about your own future and turn off your phones so that when the time comes, you can put together a pitch deck. And, it could start as a presentation to us because we're non-threatening and it's fun and we're friendly. But then you can alter it according to the kind of questions you get and such, so that when you go seeking funding, you already pretty well have the presentation ready. Make sense? Okay, drop a yes if you're ready to go, or a me or whatever, so I can see, as Pace says in the chat. And also it'd be nice to say hello and thank you to Shawn. All right.
Thank you for having me, everyone. Thank you, Effie. Happy Saturday, everyone. Thanks for showing up to listen to little old me here. I hope to be able to impart some pearls of wisdom here based on my experience. So, I was thinking that I guess we're calling this a deep dive, which sort of gave me brought to mind the image of, or the rhyming with, high dive or cliff diving into the abyss. I guess it might seem that way when we talk about co-living and workforce shared housing. I'm guessing, like me, when I was getting started, it seemed like that. For me, my journey in co-living has been rich, and I don't mean necessarily in fungible assets, but there's just been a whole lot to learn, as I'm sure you're all experiencing as you enter this asset class somewhere along the continuum here. So I'm really grateful to be here today with all of you. My purpose is to try to help each of you, what I would say, make a binary choice, and is co-living, is this asset class right for you? And that's sort of a thumbs up or thumbs down. And if it's yes, then, I'm here to help you in any way I can in this group or beyond this group. I'll share a little bit more about that later. But so picture in this opening slide, which I think I'm not looking at, but I presume we're on that first slide at this point. That's the grand entry inside my first co-living house. So that's the entryway. This is when you come through the door, this is what you're met with. So we'll do a deep dive into how I acquired that house, how I converted it, how I filled it, and how I today operate that house. So a shout out to those of you who here I've met before. Happy to see you again. I've invited a couple of my student partners here. I'm not sure if they made it. Welcome to Jonathan, Natasha. Also, one of my friends and mentors in my wholesaling space. He may drop in, Curtis Harvey with Harvey Property Group. He has a wildly successful wholesaling business and a franchise he calls Wholesale Business in a Box, which any of you who may want to enter the wholesaling space, that product's commercially available for purchase. Also to Victoria for her lovely comments on Effie's site about my wife and I. We know Victoria from Las Vegas market, where we were both active real estate investors. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce, as Effie already has, Jennifer, who's going to make the show go together in terms of running the slides and so forth, so I can focus on the material here. So let me begin by sort of noting the most distinguishing difference between me and most of you, which is not just my age. It's only that I got started in this co-living space earlier than some or most of you. And again, as I said before, I remember looking into this intriguing asset class of co-living and knowing virtually nothing about it. I mean, really, it seems like eons ago, but it was really just a very short couple of years ago. And I would say, Curtis, if he's in here, he'll back me up here. He remembers those early conversations about my venturing into co-living. It's kind of like I use a metaphor or a story from time to time. I told you I won't tell Pace's F-150 story again here. We all know that one. I'll use my own, but it's kind of like standing on the Grand Canyon wall. If you've ever done that, sort of peering over the edge, you can see way, way down below, people doing, maybe they're hiking, rafting, kayaking, and you ask yourself, how do they get down there? I mean, it looks like they're having a great time enjoying themselves, but it looks like fun, but how do I get there? That's sort of the metaphor where I remember thinking, wow, this sounds fantastic, almost too good to be true. When I first had this presented to me, I thought, wow, 2 to 3 times lift on gross rents. I sign on with PadSplit. I don't have to deal with tenants anymore. It's passive. I can live remote. I mean, I thought, where do I sign up? Send me that mailbox money. Let's get going now. I presume some of you may have been struck by that similar or same notion. If not, you guys are much more experienced in this than I am. But that was my first reaction. So before we get into the details, I'm going to ask that you consider this question for yourself as sage advice, I guess. Are you committed to co-living, or are you just curious? I don't want you to answer now, but I'm going to probably ask this question throughout the program because that really is going to be a defining question for you on your journey. So let me please advance the slide, and I'll introduce you to my extensive team of experts. If we're on that second slide now, you'll see my expansive organization and really the brains and the success quotient in my organization. She's standing right to my immediate left. That's my wife, Yelena. And
Elena?
Of course, Yelena with a Y, like yellow, Yelena.
Yelena, that's
and
beautiful.
So if Curtis is in here, no, he knows that's to be true. That is to be true, that she's the one that makes it happen. And then of course, in between us, standing with me is my loyal canine, Teo. He's really not an NYPD officer. We just happened to have been there last week visiting family and friends. And I like the K-Rail prop with NYPD. So shout out to the men and women in blue. But so my family partnership works seamlessly, as my wife sort of looks at me curiously across the room right now. We're always simpatico, right? Most of the time, at least. So Teo is kind of the tiebreaker on the partnership. But the secret is he almost always sees things my way, so that he tends to vote with me, and that's how I retain sort of pseudo power in the partnership. But so he's the sergeant at arms in our organization, as you can see, appropriately positioned in between us in the picture. So it's his job to make sure that his parents or his partners are always stay in their lane and in sync and focused on running our business successfully, because that's the means to end for him. It's all about the dog food money. So in prep for today, I was kind of thinking, how can I bring value here? And because there's, again, where do I start? There's so much. So I'm not going to be here pontificating about why it's the right model at the right time in today's market. I mean, even though I feel strongly that that's the case, I'm not going to talk about or prognosticate about or forecasting where I think the market's going and all that stuff. I debate that all the time with Curtis, so I'm not going to bore you all here. Instead, I came up with this mind map, and we'll pivot to here. And
Did you
It's
do
really
this?
everything we need to know. Sorry, Effie,
Did you do this?
did I do this?
Is this your idea?
Creatively? Well, my map was my idea, but I couldn't have created that if my life depended on it. No, Jennifer built that slide for me and all
Well,
these slides,
thank
if
you for
that's the
both
question.
of you. I think it's fantastic. And
Well,
thank you for taking the time to think this through to this degree. That's awesome.
sure. Well, and I'm put it in a mind map because it's more emblematic of sort of the sort of swirling dervish of all of the things. And there's not a one thing, and there's probably many things that didn't, there just wasn't enough space, right? But that's really how this whole thing looked to me as these things sort of came rushing at me as I tried to figure out, where and what to do next. So now that you've got everything you need to know, if there's no other questions, I'm ready to wrap it up. But no, I'm kidding. So it's really been a crazy, what are they, that baptismal under fire or something like that, I think they say.
Yeah.
But honestly, before we get into the meat of this, you guys may already have some questions. I know, Effie, you thought, we'll hold them to the end, but I'm happy to take any now. And
Okay.
we can
All right.
cover those, and then we'll jump into the meat of things, because it's not about me here, it's about you guys. So
Okay. All right. I see that Jared has raised his hand. Jared, can you unmute yourself?
So if you are taking questions, I heard you say PadSplit at the beginning. So you are doing PadSplit at your locations, or are you doing it yourself?
good question. We will get to that. I'll tell you a little bit about that story, but I have been on the PadSplit platform, and I am not on the PadSplit platform presently.
Okay.
Hmm.
Let's
So,
leave it
and
at
there's
that
no,
until,
and there,
Sean,
Okay.
let's leave it at that until you
Okay.
get to talking about it. Does that
sure,
make sense?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions right now? Okay, let's go on to the next slide. And this one
All
here,
right.
I'm so glad we have this on
Well,
recording because
before
we can
we
come
advance
back to
the
it.
slide, let me, we'll come back we'll get to the slide, but we're going to talk about, sort of briefly about professional background experience. So I can summarize it sort of in 2 words. It's lengthy and I'm old. So that's what, that's the sum of it all, really. So I've done a lot of things, both before co-living, before becoming a full-time investor, and now as a co-living host and business owner. By the way, speaking of age, can anyone relate with me on this one? I digress a moment. When visiting a doctor, does any of these doctors today seem like the same age as your kids? I mean, I recently
That
had
happened when I
recently
turned
had
40. When I turned 40 and I saw somebody that looked like they were 21, but they were actually 30.
exactly. I
I'm
just
like,
had a surgery on one of my eyes a month or so ago, and the doctor comes to the room for the consult, and I'm looking at him, and he looks like he should be my ski instructor on on winter break from college or something. I'm looking around the room at his diplomas, checking the pictures, making sure that was him that got the diploma before he I agreed to let him cut my eye open. But yeah, it's sort of profound. Doctors always seemed a lot older than me. Now that they're not, I'm questioning, wow, I better check myself. And where did the time all go, right? So, for me, in terms of work experience, it started when I was about 14, my first union job, and I never looked back. But Yelena will regularly ask me, when are we going to implement that, work-life balance thing? And my answer is always, well, honey, it's, I can't stop now. I'm just figuring this stuff out. So, it'll probably be doing this until I take my last breath, God willing. So in terms of what I've done, I get to bore you all that. Oh, well, so we can flip to that slide, but I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. But suffice it to
I
say,
am curious about one thing,
sure,
because we
of course.
can see that you were very much in real estate right from the get-go.
Yes.
The one thing that looks like a little different is the wireless network infrastructure development.
Good. Well,
I mean, we're
I'll
talking
explain that
internet
briefly.
there. But
yeah, it was during a downturn. I won't tell you which one, because again, you'll go, really, you are that old? But I was able to take my real estate experience and my broker's license and whatnot, and there was no other jobs in real estate and development. So I was pivoted and I went to work for the phone company building wireless networks. So they needed real estate. So I was in corporate real estate for many years in that space. So that's where I got into wireless. So we built networks. I was involved building the first wireless networks for Pacific Bell and Pac Bell Cellular, which became Singular, and then I've forgotten all of the machinations, but then the AT&T. And so I worked for them in that space for 10 years, building the first networks. And, I've been involved hosting, presidential, both in San Diego and then in LA, where they had the what do they call it? The primaries for, so we were the, had to provide all of the infrastructure for communication, both, voice and data and all that stuff. So they were some massive projects, really exciting stuff, one-off kind of things. And so it was very, very learned. But that's where most of my broker's license involvement, because I eventually pivoted or left and started my own consulting business. And so I had a requirement to have the people that did my leasing, commercial leasing, had to have license, and they had to have their license with a broker. And so that's where I was involved in managing that. But I only recently have ever involved myself with representing buyers and sellers in the traditional sense with my real estate license. So
cool. And we're on the next slide of your co-living journey.
Well, I was just going to give you a little bit of the background. So, suffice it to say, with all this, CV that I've listed here, I've fixed, I've flipped, and I have to say, I definitely refer to myself as a recovering house flipper, because I've moved away from flipping these days into co-living. But, again, I've had an appraisal license. I know how to underwrite. I do my own marketing direct to owners. I look at on and off market and wholesale opportunities every day. I have a buy box in my market, which today is in Las Vegas. I look at it daily. I know average value of my buy box. I track my inventory levels, days on market, median price, et cetera. I buy for cash. I buy creative. I've acquired houses subject to. I've sold on agreement for deed to deserving families who don't have the credentials or the to obtain go walk into Bank of America and get a mortgage. I've created notes, serviced them. I've been what I call accidental landlord prior to co-living, owning a few rentals. As I mentioned, I've recently listed in properties my license and sold retail and to investors. God knows I've made my share of mistakes. I've lost money, or at least it felt like I lost money when I didn't make as much as I expected when I went into an endeavor. I've been sued twice. I got the legal bills to prove it. I've acquired, again, houses subject to. I've purchased subject to from dead people. That was a good one, an interesting one. I won't digress into that story.
Wow.
I did once buy a pretty house, actually, when Pace told me to go take massive action. Bought a pretty house, zero money down into the deal, zero money period into the deal. It was subject to from an owner on a Saturday. Start to finish, took me 24 hours outside of escrow, no title insurance, over the table at a McDonald's restaurant with a mobile notary, the day before the guy was filing bankruptcy. I subsequently sold that house on a wrap. I collect $700 a month, every month net. So I mean, it worked just like clockwork. Well, mostly. And then I once wanted to quit. I once moved a client. I drove her. This was a sad story. Drove her belongings and her hundreds of miles under cover of darkness and with her stuff. The three of us in a U-Haul truck, which, by the way, was helped to pack with the neighboring gang members to another state in order for her to escape her male roommate who literally abused her, beat her, and had her captive in her own house. I mean, it was just the craziest thing you could ever imagine. And eventually I bought the house from her to close that chapter. But so I've sold houses I acquired subject to on wraps. and the gist of this whole thing is that I've done a lot of this stuff, but it really doesn't mean all that much, except that I've done it. But
No, I think it does mean a lot. I think it does mean a lot because you have the proof of concept and you've got the actual experience to draw on.
yeah. Well,
So I think
that's
it's
the
very
point, sure.
relevant, and I'm glad you're sharing that.
But I
And
think that, for each of us, it doesn't matter. That
Yep.
just sort of somehow pedestals me some way, maybe in someone's eyes. And that's not the point. The point I want to make is that at the end of the day, in the REI business and in, certainly in the co-living business, the success quotient is showing up every day, putting
Yep.
in the hard work, performing the money-making activities that are going to accomplish the goals you set for yourself. So that is open and available to every one of us. One of my mentors early on, Mitch Stephen, he always said, my diploma comes from La Calle University. You don't know what that means. That in Spanish, for those of you non-Spanish speakers, that means the street. The lessons we learn there are hard oftentimes, and the ones we never forget, and hopefully we don't repeat. So, and when I got involved in the REI space, is that very little of what I knew before or brought with me had any transfer value. So I guess my point is, again, even though I've been in real estate in some form or another most of my professional career, everyone here can be a success in the REI space, co-living. So I want everyone to feel like we're all equals in this thing, and I don't have any inside track. I can just have experience in some cases where others may not. So, so let's go to the next slide on my journey then. So, many of us have been introduced to co-living either by a mentor or someone we know, proximity to them or someone that we've heard of.
Hold on a second, Jennifer. I think we need the next slide, please.
The co-living journey is the next slide.
Oh, we're on that. We've been on it for a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah. So, some have a curiosity to know more, fewer have made the commitment to co-living. So, and even less know about it at an experiential level. When I started, I didn't have access to the Sam Weigers of the world or anyone else, frankly, out there. It was, one of my HomeVestor peers who was our market lead, who knew only slightly more than I did, which was zero. And the access to the PadSplit account executive, who she was really the one that helped bring it together for me. So, but there's really nothing better than actual experience, and that's supplants third-party advice, which that can be risky and on a slippery slope. So I would caution anyone to make sure you vet where the information is coming from. And so I'm here to help you learn from my skills and experience. And as I mentioned, to the question earlier, that I started with the PadSplit model. I converted my houses with the PadSplit model in mind. And
where were the properties, Shawn?
They're in Las Vegas.
Okay,
so
both of them.
I live in Southern California. My HomeVestor franchise is in Las Vegas, so that's where why I'm active, particularly in that market, and that's where I will continue to acquire my co-living houses. Although I may go outside there, but for the time being, before I start jumping into other markets, that's really my backyard. So
when you went with PadSplit, were they already established in Las Vegas?
They were not. So that's really the perfect segue. So the journey, I think the slide we're looking at shows five or six different chapters. So really, I wanted to talk about PadSplit, and because everything else was sort of, just secondary to what we're here to discuss today. So we, through my HomeVestor franchise, we were introduced to PadSplit. They were, and I believe still are, should be, a vendor to HomeVestor. So we met and were introduced to PadSplit at one of our year-end conferences in 2021. And that was the beginning of the whole, really putting in co-living into action and workforce shared housing. So we discussed with them Vegas market. At that point, they'd never been west of the Rocky Mountains. So we convinced them that Vegas was the place to be. The numbers all lined up, and they concluded with some test marketing that they could, there was a market depth there that really justified them coming west. And so they, with a commitment from us that we'd have 10 doors available for market launch, they'd open commercially in Vegas in July of 22, a year ago.
And you were 2 of those doors.
No, actually I wasn't. I didn't own any rental doors. I said I never
Okay.
really wanted to be
Okay, that's good. I just want to know where you were in that journey.
Rental door owner or operator until I met PadSplit. I actually had a house at that time, which is one of the cautionary tales that I wasn't going to get too deep into, and I won't. But I was finishing a co-living house in Vegas. I'm sorry, a flip house. That was the dead people I acquired the house from, and I had made the studious decision or informed decision to have a short-term rental in Vegas. Well, I didn't study very hard because it turned out that the county was in the process of adopting a very draconian, restrictive ordinance that would pretty much prohibit it. So I didn't learn that until after I'd gutted the house and started framing and roughing in utilities, plumbing, electrical, etc., only to find out that I just created a white elephant, and I was sinking all this money. There was no turning back. So I now had this 4-bedroom, 2-bath house that I converted, built up to 6 bedrooms and 4 glorious bathrooms. And now what I do. So the good news is that sometimes even when like I say, a broken clock is right twice a day. I was fortunate that on 2 fronts. One, that I found somebody with a large family that could afford such a glorious overbuilt house, and 2, that he contracted and closed the deal right before the interest rate shot up and the market rolled over. So I'd like to take credit for having wisdom and great market timing skills, which I don't. And I was just by the grace of God that we got out of that thing. So I had to go find houses. Now, at least my deck was clear. I know many weren't quite so fortunate and had to sell things at a discount just to clear their decks, but we dodged a bullet. We bought our first 2 houses, I should say, or the 2 houses that I own today. They're in the Q3, Q4 of 22. And that's the house that, we'll be talking about, the first one on Mesa View Drive. And, that's what, so I realized that rather quickly that before I bought those houses, that somehow I had to figure out, right. It came to me that, what we all know as house flippers, you got to know ARV and how to calculate it, how to, figure repair costs and all those things in order to buy great deals. Well, I realized that pretty early on that since I wasn't selling the house, the after repair value was really secondary or almost useless in my analysis. So I set out to build a calculator to calculate ROI, and that would put all of the components in it for room repair or room conversion, additional rooms, bathrooms, furnishings, all those things, so that I could then go into the market and quickly calculate whether something was a deal or not based on my own criteria for return on cash or return on investment. So with that in hand, I set about to acquire these houses. So I knew I couldn't. I already admit here that I can't pick market tops or bottoms, and the market had rolled over, and God knew at that point how bad it was going to get. But I didn't want to wait, and so I figured I would just dollar cost average into the market. So I'd buy a good deal using my calculator, my first house, and then I'd buy a better deal the next time as the market continued to head south. And at some point, it would turn the other direction, and I'd be back in the money. But all the while, I knew those houses would cash flow for me. So that was how I set about. Now, some of the other interesting learnings are that, I didn't any longer have to go find a needle in a haystack, meaning some motivated seller who had to sell it at deep discount only because the house was, completely run down and distressed. I could actually go and look at a pretty house, as I would call it. And I didn't have to, risk life and limb to hope that I didn't uncover some undiscovered flaw in the house and, end up upside down within the first few months of starting the renovation. So that was one of the big learnings, just one of the many. So that was a lesson learned to the good side. And I would counsel anybody today that, you can fish in the MLS for deals. So if you know what you're fishing for. So, okay. So the question of what happened with PadSplit, I converted my first and then my second house. And of course, the first one got finished right around December, January, which is absolutely the worst time of the year, seasonality wise, to try to fill a house. Because most people that are renting rooms, they go on vacation, they go home, they go somewhere, not in my house. So, it was like, and I should say before that, the PadSplit had someone on the ground in the market. PadSplit has sort of an interesting organization. Half the organization is host facing or investor facing. The other half is facing the consumer or the guest that's going to occupy the house.
Yep.
So because they wanted to make a big splash in the market, they put somebody on the ground to go sign up membership. So before market launch, they had like 700 people raising their hand going, give me one of those, give me one of those. And we were just,
you mean that were looking for rooms?
For our rooms, yes.
Okay. So they did a market survey and they saw that it was there.
They saw it was there and they put somebody there who was door knocking, calling on, luxury apartment operators and going to organizations, clergy, you name it. He was really shaking the trees and did a fantastic job of building this network of people wanting rooms. So we couldn't get to the market fast enough with rooms.
Right. And this
of course,
was in July
my house was
2022.
That was correct. So that by the time I got to market in December, of course, there was seasonality, but that gentleman who had done such a great job fell into some, unseemingly situation with PadSplit, and they separated. So he was gone. And of course, with him went the prospect list. The 700 people now went with him. So somewhere.
Out of curiosity, when they let him go, did it involve the business? The reason they let him go?
I have no idea. They've never told me. I really didn't need to know. Now I've subsequently met with that guy who was still in Vegas because I'm getting ahead of myself in the story. So anyway, he was gone.
But long story short, they had one employee and the guy was good at, bringing up numbers for, members, but they let him go. And he took the data
because something
with him?
happened. I mean, he took again, which was I asked them. I asked Atticus and anybody else that would listen to me there, like, you guys are a tech company, right? Why did you leave the prospect list on his server and not yours?
Right.
But things happen. No one expected that, and they.
So
anyway,
was he able to help you fill your house, or was he already gone?
He was gone, and he was persona non grata because he did something that they weren't happy with. I was aligned with PadSplit, not him. So anyway, so here I was. End of the year, no one around to fill my house, and Elena and I had made the conscious choice that we wanted to be the high price leader in the market. We wanted to have the prettiest house. We want, for whatever reason, we decided that was going to we thought that would inure to our benefit because we'd get a different or maybe a better or higher caliber tenant in our house. So that was our decision. So now we're trying to market the most expensive rooms in the market to God only knows who, because the guy that had all the gold was gone. And now PadSplit's trying to figure out how to drive membership from Atlanta. So, which is what they do successfully today. at that moment in time, though, they couldn't pivot fast enough to take it on remotely to do, paid advertising, sort of thing, to drive the kind of numbers in Vegas that I, for one, had needed. I now had my first house and my second house. So I have, between those two houses, I have 9 and 8 bedrooms respectively in the two houses. So I had 17
Wow.
bedrooms, 19. Is my math right?
And that's how
19.
you became self-performing?
It is. My wife pushed me out the door one day and said, "Go find people. We're gonna, we're dying here."
Did you
So
put like a sandwich board over you that said rooms
yeah,
for rent?
we'll
Come
work for
talk to me.
tenants. Yeah, exactly. So I had to figure out, now again, I didn't think about this going back to earlier. My PadSplit vision was 2 to 3 times gross rents, walk away income, no involvement. I didn't have to deal with now I'm up to my eyeballs in this thing. And of course, my dear wife saying, "What have you gotten us into yet again?"
Mhm.
And so here I was out there trying to find somebody I can rent my rooms to. So long story
How did you do?
short,
And what avenues
well,
did you use?
I
Because there are a lot of
realized I
people
had to
will
step
want to
back.
do that.
Sure. And I think it's available to anybody if, and so let me tell you what the calculus was. I thought, if I had a magic wand to use paceism, how would I align myself? If I could get direct to an employer, that would be perfect. They just send me people. And so that was really what I did, and in Vegas,
What kind of
anybody's
employers?
been to, well, if I was going to say, if anybody's been to Vegas before, you've probably been on the Strip, and you can probably see all those big fancy casinos and hotels and convention centers. And now the sports has come to town. We've got, football, we got hockey, so everything happens on the Strip. So as it was, I was astute enough to, when I originally drew my buy box parameter profile, it was close to the Strip because I knew I needed employers or employees to fill my house. So I didn't have to pick up my houses and move them. I was already sort of in the right spot. So now I just needed to get the attention of employers. And there's, again, the seasonality nature of things in Vegas. There's all kinds of job fairs around the beginning of the year. And so I just forced my way in there and started forging these relationships with employers, with their, HR people that were there on these job fairs. And, one led to another. And, that's sort of how I got. So I'm not direct to the employer, but I am aligned with them. So they now know who I am. They now have all of our marketing material. They know our pretty houses. They know our bedrooms. They know me. They know about us. So now there's sort of this, alliance or alignment where they feel comfortable sending people my way. Now, do I capture everybody? No, I don't need to. But that's how I did it. It was just out of necessity, really, is how it all happened. So the interesting thing that comes out of that, and if you own and operate now, or when you do own and operate your first co-living houses, culture and environment in the house is really important, because besides word of mouth, you want to have, the daily activities in the house to be symbiotic, I guess, and working. So when I have people who are employed and they have a similar mode, if you will, those people tend to self-regulate to some extent inside the house.
Can you give us an example?
Well, okay, you'll see the pictures in a minute, but pretty house, nice, comfortable. If someone comes and people get settled in, not some stay longer than others. So the longer stay folks tend to set the culture the way they want it. Now, if that's in alignment with me, now I've got an advocate in my house, call it the house dad or house mom or whatever, that kind of make sure the trash gets out on time and make sure no one leaves dishes for weeks on end or leaves food to go dormant in the refrigerator, those kinds of things. Helps to
Nice.
get the house functioning. So I don't have to be the bad guy or the sergeant at arms, the regulator. It kind of self-manages to a large extent. So again, I'm not on the PadSplit platform, so I don't have the benefit of having the trouble ticket thing where when Johnny eats Susie's hot dogs, they respond and say, hey, somebody did this, and who do they call? They call me. So or what we've done is, and with Jennifer's great help, we have like a internal chat or response line where people, it's not necessarily set up to be a whistleblower line, but rather to sort of help remind people, hey, don't forget, Wednesday's the trash day, or that. So again, trying to help drive and shape the performance of the house. But sort of implied in there, though, because it's sort of tied loosely to their employment, they know I know their employer, their HR department. First of all, they've gone through that filter before they enter my house, the HR background check and the drug check or whatever they do. They're not out on probation from murder, those kinds of things, right? So
Wait a second, Shawn. I'm curious to know, does that mean that when you get these people from the employers, which I love, you don't need to do a background check and a credit
I'm
check,
just
or
saying
do you still?
no, I would still do all those things. I'm just saying, I know there's been some level before they ever get to me.
Right,
So
exactly.
I'm not starting from ground
Yep.
zero. No,
Yep.
it's already
Pre-selected.
filtered. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So the fact that they know I know their employer, I know their boss, even though I don't, there's some sort of implied dynamic there between me and the guest that,
Mm-hmm.
if they screw up the relationship with me, maybe they lose their job. I don't know. I'm just saying, so there's sort of a healthy three-way alliance between the employer, the employee, and me, the host. So
that is a very wise thing that you did. I experienced the same thing when I was working at the University of California, Davis, and I was managing the PhD and a few master's programs. In finding housing for the PhD students, I used to always say to wherever they'd end up, hey, by the way, if this guy's partying too much, let me know. So they, just like you say, you have a direct contact to their employer. I did have to sit one guy down one time and say, you smarten up at home or you won't get your funding next year from us. And he's like, holy shit, she's got cameras in my house. I was like, no, but your landlord called me, So the point is, it does work. Just knowing that you know each other is an important relationship.
Yeah. So that's how I found my way outside of the PadSplit framework and how I've been able to sort of engineer this thing. Again, none of this was,
intentional.
Was part of a strategic plan that I set about to enact. It was just out of sheer necessity and brute force that it happened. So
how did it affect the numbers? How did it affect the numbers? Because PadSplit takes what, 15%?
Well, there you go. That was right off the top. So that went right back to my bottom line. So,
and you had more control because you ended up being able to kind of source people, even though it might have been a struggle at first and maybe you didn't want that involvement. You had the relationship or have the relationship with the employers, not the PadSplit people.
Right. Well, and that's a really great point. I don't want to, it's a good time to mention that is being active in the house or visible is really a value add to the end product, meaning for a couple of reasons. One, if you rent your house to a single tenant, you find that you do all the right stuff, you do all the background checks, and they're the model citizen and they got great income, they got savings, and they, whatever. It fits exactly to a T who you're looking for. And you sign that lease agreement for 12 months, you hand them the keys, wave goodbye, and you go, God, I hope I made the right selection. And then 12 months later or further down the road, when they've moved out and you're going to inspect the property, you open that door and go, God, I hope I made the right choice last year. And I hope my house is still intact. And only to find out that the person, had a meth lab and did target practice in the back room. And I mean, whatever, let your mind run wild.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So what happens in your co-living space, even different than your short-term rental house, you're there and you could see what's going on. You have every right to be there as often or as you so choose. You can walk through.
You can go into the common space without any notice,
stuff.
nothing.
Yeah, you can head things off before they turn into a disaster. And so for all those reasons, I would encourage one to be visible or have your assignee visible in the house who gets to know the guest. But also, maybe equally as important, is the guests like to know that you're a real person and not some LLC in Delaware, nameless, and just a property manager who's even less interested only in collecting his or her fee. And so there's this, it almost, if you aren't around, it almost lends itself to mischievous behaviors because who's watching after all? And what's the consequence? So being there, walking through not on schedule, not on cue, just, hey, I was on my way to the post office, just stopped by to say hi. In fact, I brought you guys some donuts. I mean, you have to do that, but I'm just saying, whatever reason you need to come up with or no reason, just show up. And I sort of liken it to, my kids as they coming of age, as they went from children or, into teenage years, they wanted less and less to do with me. And they wanted to forge their own path and they want independence. They want all those things. That is up until the point that, late night thunderclaps started happening and they're in the bed with me going, I'm scared, Dad. So tenants are kind of similar in the sense that they don't really want you meddling, but they want to know you're around in case they need you. So that's the best, kind of metaphor or analogy I can use to describe that dynamic because they say I'm not on their speed dial, but I know they know how to find me. I'm around enough that they can reach me. They can reach us through the internal communication channel. So
I think that's very excellent. That's a really good point. A very good point. And
I would
glad
encourage
that you brought that up.
Just be visible. Just be visible at some interval. Okay, so let's get to the fun stuff. Let's go look at the pictures of the house. And Jennifer, you'll tell me when that slide is up. And for some reason, I'm not seeing my
We
slide
are
deck.
currently in the house slide.
Yeah, we see the red door, we see the entryway, we see the outside. Are we going to get to see any of the rest of it?
Yeah, well, that should be the first.
Yeah, it's been there. It's been there for a little while. Yep.
Yeah. So the house, as it says there, I don't have to read it to you, is 2-story, 2650 square feet. Started out as a 2.5. All the bedrooms were up. Half bath downstairs. Generous, big open space. Vaulted volume ceilings in the living room. Coffered sort of, dining room area, big open kitchen that bleeds into the family room, lots of open space.
Can we see that, Jennifer? Are we going to see the kitchen?
You should be able to.
Other things? Oh, all right. Now we're into things we want to see.
Sorry, I thought that was the slide we were on. So
no, this is awesome. Now we're seeing the floor plan, something that all of us should revel in.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you from before and after, and I'm going to try to toggle back and forth. I did my level best at how to best present that. So, and again, I for some reason I'm not seeing the slide deck because I'm technically
we are
what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
I just see all this. I just see all the tiles. I'm actually looking at some notes, so I stay on track.
I see. Okay.
God knows I can get off track.
It's okay. It's just we do need to get through it, and it would help you if you could see what we see.
Well, I've seen it many times. I went through this with another group yesterday, so I know it's there. So let me just go. So
say that again,
Jennifer.
I was saying that we are in the floor plan before, then we have an after.
So, right. So left side is the ground level, right side is second story. So you can see there's all the beds are up, bedrooms are up, half bath downstairs with a wet bar adjacent, and then upstairs a large primary and both bed and bath ensuite, and then 2 secondary bedrooms, and then a bonus space, which actually that in the pictures you'll see is doubles as there's a couch in there and a bed in there. So there was really, they called it a 4th bedroom. So that's how the house came to us. A family lived in there. So again, it was fully operational. I didn't have to go rebuild. Well, I did rebuild it, but I didn't have to go fix anything. Good roof, good HVAC, so we then
Do you want
converted
to
that house.
move it forward, please, to the
Yep.
next one?
So we converted from that 4-2 configuration to 9-4.
4294.
Yep. So anyone that goes in the house, and the pictures may or may not do it justice, but the house still feels, generous. You saw the picture in the entry. So you come into volume space. You don't feel like you're walking into a rat maze or a tunnel system.
No.
It feels good. And throughout the house, the bedrooms are relatively generous. All our rooms today have at least 2 full-size beds in them. Some cases we have
So
3
Jennifer, can
twin.
you show us that, please? There we go. All right. So now we're seeing, oh, look at that. You put the lines on the ground as to how you want the rooms to be. Is that,
We did. We just went in there and
that was,
started
is
spray
that
painting
carpet that it's
everything.
on, or is that the
It
floor?
is, and that all went, but we didn't care because we were tearing
Yeah.
it all out.
Oh, that's
Going to
awesome, because it
hard
really
surface.
lets you see how it's going to be.
Yeah, it really helped quite a bit. Again, this is our first venture in this thing. So I have sort of an eye for spatial, layout, but still going in the house like okay, here we
Nice.
go, boys. Let's go get it. But so
Okay.
yes, we
All
actually
right.
painted on the walls where a door would be, and
Oh,
it was pretty crazy.
Cool. All right, Jennifer,
So
show
what-
us some more. Oh, this
So
is
what we
awesome.
did, and I
Why are
digressing
there 3
slightly
beds in one room?
because we don't have any. Well, I don't say any. I do have a couple single bed rooms, but largely our rooms are double and triple occupancy, which again breaks from the home investor model completely. And one of the reasons when I pivoted and they said, "Oh my God, we can't have more than one person in the room. That's not our model." I said, "Well, how?" They say our technology doesn't allow, our back office doesn't allow us to. I said, "Really? You can't go from 1 bed to 2? Is that such a leap?"
So
So
these
I was
people-
kind of, as usual, I'm forced. I was breaking from tradition and
That is
forcing
different. That's different than what I've
disruption.
heard so far.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, these are
Okay.
people that don't know each other before?
Well, those that are common, well, they get to know each other, right?
Yeah, I'm
But
sure they
again,
do, but I don't know
these
if
are
I'd want to
common
strip in front of
employers
someone
and
I
a
don't know.
common. Well, this is Vegas after all, but I'm kidding.
Yeah, probably people are stripping all
No,
over the
we
place.
we don't mix genders in a room, so
Not.
nor do we couple. So these are you come on your own. We match as best we can, men with men and women with women. Sometimes you never know these days, but that's not my business. So anyway, that's why, or that's how we do, and it works in Vegas. I'm not sure that necessarily works everywhere, but it works for us with our
So, this is very
employer class.
interesting. I love the way that you marked the floor. Are these the end of the pictures that show the
No.
indoors?
No, I'm going to try to show you
Let's see some more of them.
some of the room conversion. So
Yeah.
Jennifer, are we at room 1 slide, please?
No, actually, we are in the bedrooms downstairs.
Already? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So we jumped way ahead. So
See, this is where next time you do this, Shawn, you're gonna do it with a laptop next to you so you can
Yeah,
see what
I don't know
Jennifer
why I
is doing.
can't see. I don't know why I
It
can't
doesn't matter.
honestly.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just we do need to
So I'm
kind of move
ad-libbing a
along.
bit. I know what I put on the slide. I just don't know what slide I'm looking at. So if
Exactly.
we're looking at so Jennifer, tell me where we are. Then I can tell you what's on there.
We are in the bedroom downstairs.
Okay, so in that case, you'll see there's the left-hand side of the before pictures, right-hand side are after. So what we did is we took, as I mentioned earlier, it was a half bath and a wet bar downstairs. We took out that wet bar to increase the bathroom capacity downstairs, but we also, they happened to back up to the wet bar backed up to the bathroom, the half bath. We didn't tear the wall out in between. We actually left them as separate compartments. So we have now a shower separate from the sink and the toilet. So two people.
I think that's called a French bathroom or something like that. In Europe, they have them like that way.
Okay, I haven't heard that, but so that's what we did there. And so it was a very quick connection, just a sewer connection of 3 or 4 feet.
It looks really nice. And going with 9-4, that means 2 people for each bathroom. No, 2 bedrooms for each bathroom.
Well, so the PadSplit model is 3-to-1 ratio. So we actually, in terms of bedrooms and people, so we broke the model or the mold, but because our employees, our guests tend to not be on the same, sort of 8 to 5 thing. You think about the hospitality casino business, in Vegas, there's shifts. So people come and go with on different times of the day. So not everybody is in the house at the same time. And so
how many people end up using one bathroom? Because you had some rooms that had 3 beds in that bath. So that was 1 bedroom.
Right. But again, not everybody may be in that bedroom, occupying that bedroom at the same time. Some are at work. Some
I
are
got that.
sleeping. Right. Okay. So, there's 4 bathrooms in the house, upstairs, downstairs. So there's more than enough capacity.
How many people?
Well, in that house, I have, let's see, so 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15 plus 3 is 18 beds in that house, I believe.
Wow.
We've turned it around.
Jennifer,
a few times,
right now, forget the entire presentation. Take us to the money. Where's the money? I want to know. You must be doing very well.
Well, we do what we can do. We basically we're getting our model or our target is $1,000 a room, however you slice it. Sometimes we get a little more than that in the 3-bed rooms, because that's what the market will bear.
So about a third of that.
So let's go to since we kind of skipped past let me make a point, because in one of the things we did, which helped, we took the master or primary, I'm sorry, I can't break that habit. The primary bathroom and bedroom, which was en suite, we created a hallway, because again, these rooms were generous enough. We created a hallway with direct access to the rest of the house to what was the primary bathroom. And then we split that primary bathroom in half. So we created 2 new bathrooms out of 1, and we made it public to the rest of the house. So now I hear it said from some of those who are in this space talking about value adds and whatnot, saying, you can get more for a primary bedroom and bathroom en suite. Well, that may be true. I'm not here to say, but for me, I needed access to the rest of the house, to as many bathrooms as I could provide. So for me, I needed to get it out of the ensuite formatted into a public access without going through bedrooms. So that was another design change we made. So we probably spent a little more on this house than we might otherwise. This was our starter kit. So if you've ever built a model out of a box before, you'll realize for the first time it's not just as easy as reading the instructions. It
Yeah,
takes lots
I
of
can
fits
see
and
that.
starts. So let's go to the pro forma. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? So
Oh,
what I
Sean,
did here,
we have a video.
yeah.
Sean,
Oh
we
yeah,
have a
the
video.
pretty stuff. Let me run the video, then you can walk through the house. It takes a minute, and then we'll go right to the pro
Okay,
forma.
sure.
Build
Do we
the
guys,
suspense.
we want to see the house? Yes?
Yeah, it'll take you through all the
Okay,
rooms
good.
in
Let's go.
continuity. So
Yeah,
Jennifer,
it
roll
looks
that.
great. Oh, nice. I like the way you have it set up.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Okay, so
Um,
there's the finished product.
Very nice indeed. Elan, I know you said you have to go and that's great. Are you in sub 2, Elan? Okay, I think that's a yes. All right, then you can find me and just DM me on Gator. Good. So through Facebook, reach out through
I
Facebook.
think Elon's up in Minnesota. I got it right?
Yep, he gave us a heart. And thank you for
Yep.
being here, because he's just saying in the chat that he has to go.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is very interesting because
All right, so
with
that's what it
time-
looked like. So if we're on the pro forma before and after, left-hand side is the model, single tenant. If I was going to rent it, as you saw the house before we made the conversions,
Mhm.
you can see my acquisition costs, closing costs, total cash invested. In this case, because it's a year, I looked at it as a 12-month snapshot. There's no vacancy in there. So you see the gross rents before expenses, both monthly and annually.
Mhm.
And then below that line is then the operating expenses. So utilities, property management, et cetera, taxes, insurance, and a net operating income. So, and then most importantly, what's the cash on cash return? So if I was looking at that house to buy new at 435 plus expenses, it's only
Mhm.
generating, keep me honest, I think it's around 5% cash on cash return.
Yeah,
So
5.19.
if I was looking at that today, now knowing I'm not looking at it today, but if I were, and I'd be looking at, treasury bills are paying, federally backed, paying somewhere around 4 to 5% today. Why would I risk, owning this asset and all the risks that come with
Mhm.
Investment property ownership? Maybe I just park my money in a T-bill and call it good, right? And then I'll take those. I'll enter that work-life balance thing my wife's been asking about.
Mhm.
But when you look at the right-hand side, you can see even with what we spent in addition to the purchase price to convert that house to 9 bedrooms of somewhere 70,000 plus, you can see how the numbers fall out in the same way.
Right.
I
Can you
do have a
scroll that
vacancy
down
factor
just a
there.
teeny bit, so that we can see the cash on cash, which we should be able to figure out anyhow, but, can you, there you go. All right. So it's a little bit smaller, but yeah, what a difference. You're going from
So
20.
now it's got my attention, right?
Yes.
Both from terms of what I'm earning, the bottom line at the end of the month, putting, as someone would say, put it in my pocket, and what that how that measure of cash on cash compares to what my alternatives are. I can't get that in the T-bill for sure.
No,
And
you can't.
there are many other asset classes that probably, that are more risky that may or may not return that kind of a ROI. So this is what I use on all the properties I look at every day. We, Linda will, Jennifer will attest to this,
Mhm.
modeling these deals that, past the first levels of filters and going, okay, is this something we should own?
Yeah.
So that's how I can measure and monitor, good and great deals and know when, if I'm going to pull the trigger or not. So, and one of the things I'm doing also is I'm helping others, certainly, in my market and now outside my market, acquire an asset like this, depending on their investment
Yep.
objectives. And I can, because I'm in the market, I'm wholesaling, I'm doing this, and I have access to these opportunities and can vet properties like this, easily in anywhere, anytime. So,
And I also think I'm going to interrupt Shawn for 1 second to say, guys, if you haven't noticed, there's also a line item in there for property management. So, obviously if you're, he could be paying himself over 8,000 for doing the property management. Or if he didn't want to do it, he could have somebody else do it. And yet he's walking away each year with 67,000, a little over net. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so, to answer your question, it's certainly been a good investment. It hasn't been a straight line, never is, but now that we were stabilized, we're filling regularly, we know how to be a host and a landlord for the first time in this asset class for sure. And we're learning and getting better and better every day. So I hope we better.
Oh,
so
I'm sure you
we
are.
can,
And this is your larger house, right, Shawn?
it is. The other one's only slightly smaller. It's 2,200 square feet, one
And
less
it has
bedroom.
8 bedrooms, you said?
Yeah, 8 bedrooms. Mhm.
And how's it doing for net? Can you tell us offhand? Do you know how much you're doing on net?
Oh,
on
I
that?
mean, I'm getting the same room rates, and really all the costs are the same on the co-living side. So just one less bedroom and, one less person,
Yep.
using utilities, so it's more, it's close. I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head, but it's
So
close.
between the two houses, you have well over 100,000 on net.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
I didn't
do
like
I
the
want
idea
more
of
of them?
having 3 beds in one
Absolutely.
bedroom, but right now, wow.
And I'm not saying you have to have that to get there. I mean,
Yep.
again, either, PadSplit in my market is getting, 235, 245 for a nice house with one bed. So, you're a little shy of that. Of course, you're paying them their 15% as well. But my point is the market will bear, something close to what I'm getting.
Cool.
And
Very
so
cool.
you don't have to go crazy like maybe we
Yeah.
have with all these beds. And
How many more slides do we have? Because I'd like to bring you to the Q&A from the audience.
yeah, sure. I mean, that's really it. I was just going to
What's
say
over
that, just to the point I was starting to allude at, and I didn't come in here to pitch anything. I just want you to know that, because I can only be so many places at one time and help, and I can keep talking like this, God knows. But so I decided that if I really want to help and I really can help, I can, but I need to put I need to make it a program of some sort. So I've worked out a way where I can do that, call it coaching, mentoring, whatever. And I haven't finalized it all yet, but I'm really just that kind of the Cliff Note version of that is that, I'm willing to help someone get their first house, and I'm, at this point, before I go to market with it, with any kind of, charge attached to it, if I can bring the deal and I can demonstrate using that same pro forma, an opportunity to say, and if my fee is absorbed in my negotiated cost of the house, then I can afford to actually bring a deal to somebody, take you from, through the whole site selection process, the conversion, the make ready, the furnishing, everything, and set you at the precipice going, okay, here, let's go to market with this house. And that way I can actually really make sure you get to where you want to be as best I possibly can. And so the question about, is now the right time? Is, am I curious, or am I really committed to this co-living thing?
Right.
Once you answer that question for yourself, I can help you get the next step. Because there's, I would submit that every day that someone waits, there's, you're losing, first of all, your money's being eroded. Your capital is with due to inflation.
Yeah,
Every
like we
month you're
know,
waiting-
if we had done
Yeah.
this 10 years ago, we would be wealthier
Well, sure.
already. Yeah.
Sure. And you'd never sell
Yeah.
anything if we knew better.
Yeah.
But you get them, and you're missing the cash flow every month you wait.
Yes.
You're waiting for what is always the question. Waiting for what?
Yes,
I would argue
but I am a
is
firm
no better
believer.
time.
Yes, but I have
Mhm.
to say I'm a firm believer in the time is right for each person when it's right.
No, that's what I said. You have to decide if you're ready,
yeah,
if you're committed, or if you're still just interested.
right, exactly.
So
Okay,
that's
so
the defining
Jennifer,
question.
thank you for dropping his link in the chat also. I think that's
yeah.
great.
So if you want information, that sort of stuff, put it in there. I can, we can talk offline, or
Yep.
that will be helpful to me. You can use the
Sure.
QR code that's there, and
Yep.
that makes it easier for everybody, I
Okay,
think.
and I'm going to ask you to stop share now, please, Jennifer. Awesome. Now we've got Shawn on main screen, and I can see what kind of questions there are. And I think this is very interesting, because obviously Shawn has given a lot of thought, and now he's possibly moving, or he is moving to his next phase, which is, helping other people. And this is all about learning. It's learning and figuring out where you are, and giving you guys each the opportunity to go ahead and share what you're doing with us, and for us to learn from you. So I am going to now moderate in saying I'd like to have some people ask questions. And Shawn, if you can be nice enough to answer, then we can get some of the
Absolutely.
questions done.
Happy to.
I'm going to call on Jim first. Hi, Jim.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you, Shawn. Question for you. Have you considered, because you're talking about, helping others getting into the space, have you considered buying another property, doing everything that you've done, getting it rented out, and then selling it as an investment?
I have, and again, it really starts with the question I keep asking. One asks themselves, committed or interested? I would do it if, when someone's committed, they want that. I can absolutely do that in my market. It's a little tougher for me to do that outside my market, but as I said, the program I'm envisioning, I can do most of that. If we were doing this at something at scale, then there'd probably have to be another load in there if I'm going to be coming into the market and physically doing things with someone like yourselves, in terms of oversight of the build out and that sort of thing. But so anything along the continuum is possible. And so that's why this program I'm envisioning helps to get people to that point of, okay, I'm more than just interested. I'm really committed to doing it. Now, how do I get there? So
Good.
yes.
Good.
And I guess my question is more, do you think there would be a market for that? Let's just say you don't have anybody, you just find another house that you really like, you put the whole thing together, you get it rented out, and then you turn around and sell it to, an investor.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. I mean, whether it's, again, whether it's in my market or not, I mean, I can turn, in fact, I was somebody early on, I talked to it through the PadSplit connection. So yes, that's absolutely something that I would do and can do.
Great.
Again, it really comes down to where.
And also, I
you.
have something to say on that, Jim, and I will say it in a moment. But do you have any different questions for him right now, Jim?
No, that's really it, because that's kind of been my, we have 2 co-living houses as well. Not that size. Ours are much smaller. We've been doing it since 2016. and it's been an incredible experience. So my hat's off to you to starting this doing this presentation,
Yes,
and anyway, so
that's
thank
great.
you.
That's great.
Welcome.
And you know, you're on the list, right? You're going to have to present. Anyhow, but this is a concept that you guys are talking about is really interesting because I had a couple of announcements to make and I have a comment on that. I have an opinion. Manya?
Thank you, Effie, for hosting, and Shawn, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, mind blown right now. I'm co-living committed, by the way. I'm no longer co-living curious. And I love this idea of, I mean, I think Vegas, right, in itself lends itself to the multiple bed model in a higher end home, right? And you've definitely taken time to an intention to make it meticulous. When you were approaching employers, how much marketing did you have? Did you have a website? Did you have like printed materials? Like, how did you break that kind of cold barrier and making it warm?
Great.
Well, I suppose truth be known, I sort of, I had access to PadSplit's material, and I could just lift the PadSplit name off and go. I mean, again, necessity is mother of invention, right? So I thought I got to figure out how to visually express what I'm talking about. So it was easy in that respect. So I didn't have to spend any money. I'm price sensitive or cost sensitive, so I used what resources I had, and that's what I did along with my sandwich sign.
What about your sandwich sign? What about online presence? Shawn, did you have anything online to give them, or did they?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't really.
That's encouraging.
I mean, it's
That's
really just me
encouraging.
personally. I mean, they're buying me for God forbid. It was me convincing them. Belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball. Okay, this person is real. Imagine that. There's a lot of shady characters in the Las Vegas market. I mean, besides mobsters. I mean, there's all kinds of scams out there. I'm sure it's not unique to Vegas, but employers have to be, have their radar out. Who am I talking to? Who is this person? So sending a website was not going to carry the day. So the credibility really just came with this conversation.
That's a good point.
And how much?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Manya. Go ahead.
And how much efficacy did you have, or return on your time going to job fairs, for that matter? Is that worth?
I knew who I would expect to find, or I figured who I'd expect to find there, and that's people in the HR department, right? They're trying to hire people. So rather than me trying to get an appointment with somebody, I can just fill out a job application and say, oh, by the way, before I take your time wasting processing my application, I actually have a different angle on this thing. I'm here to help, so, they're there. Maybe it's not the right person I get to first, but at least I now know who I need to talk to, and I can call and book a subsequent appointment. So that, it's just being persistent. I just don't take no for an answer. I had a good mentor in my dad, who made friends with everybody in line for anywhere, and they never get mad at him. I've always marveled at that. Like, he's just the damnedest things, but he never pisses anybody off. So I kind of go with that. My dad on my shoulder, God rest his soul. So anyway, that's how I went about it.
Thank you. Super helpful. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to make a couple of comments. I really thank you and Jennifer for putting this together. It was interesting to see a higher end property. I mean, I think most of us would say, I'd live there. It's a nice house, right? And it's also interesting to see how necessity is the mother of invention. Thank you, PadSplit, for firing him and letting him go with the data. I just saved 15%. I know now how to do it because I have to. And I actually feel I have better control. These guys know who I am. And it's also interesting, the reaction I had when I saw 3 beds in 1 bedroom. I'm like, wait a minute. And just to hear how it does work, to keep pushing ourselves to open our minds a bit more, and especially on a higher end property. Because if you were showing me that on a C- property, I go, yeah, That's what I don't like about PadSplit, but seeing it in a higher end property done really nicely, it's interesting to see how it can work. And those numbers, I mean, we're real estate investors, we like real estate, but the investing part is really critical too. And to be able to have 2 roofs and be able to make, like, I guess you're netting around 120 or right around there on ballparking, that is pretty impressive. So I was very, very pleased with that. And I hand it to you for being the giver that you are, and also thinking forward on how to possibly, make this into a program. Now, in that regard, I would like to say, not just to Jim, that I'd like for him to present sometime. And I've also said to Jimmy, hey, Jimmy, get ready. I'd like you to present sometime. Anyone and everyone who is coming to these Zooms should feel free to reach out to me and also offer and be a giver to share, so that you are articulating what you have done, just like Jared did, and just like Judd and Beth did. And it will help you to get to having a pitch deck. It really helps because, for example, Shawn just realized, okay, I need to have that screen in front of me, so I know where Jennifer is, and that just takes practice. But you had some great stories. I would love to hear some more, but that practice is in a friendly environment. So that's a very good thing too. At the same time, I'm still pushing forward and trying to do as much research as I can. I want to learn more because, I like the concept. Are you curious or are you committed? Well, of course, you have to be curious first. And I'm committed, but I'm still curious. And, I paid over $30,000 to Sam's mentorship. And, I'm expecting that to come back as a return. I expect to get, I want 4 to 6 properties from Sam. Right now, he has brought me the first one yesterday. Well, actually the second one, but the first one I had to yell at the realtor because it was such a dog. So I finally got one, and that is what I thought I'd be paying for. And I'm super excited. I'm like, yeah, we have one that we can look at, and let's move forward. But I'm still going out and looking and searching. And I wanted to share with you guys that I'm not going to go into depth right now. But when short-term rentals started, there was VRBO, Airbnb, and a whole bunch of other little ones. And Airbnb and VRBO were not very big, not at the beginning. And because that's the definition of beginning. And PadSplit has had some growing pains, and they're going to have more because their dream is big and things go wrong. And they were not the biggest when they started. Common was, and they took a bit of a hit from PadSplit, and they're still in business in major cities, and they run their model a little bit differently. I've come across a company that is doing very much what Shawn is offering to do and what Jim was questioning. What they do, in essence, is arbitrage. When I really analyzed it, I had to study it before I realized, this is arbitrage. They look for you as the real estate investor. Hey, do you have $40,000 or $50,000 or $100,000? How much money do you have that you want to invest in co-living? We will research the market, whatever market you want, which is what a lot of this is similar to what Sam's doing. We will purchase, bring the house to you in an agreement. Here it is. You can buy it for this $60,000 down or $100,000 down. And we are going to show you our vision. Part of this package is, this is how much we expect you to get in monthly cash flow. This is how much you're going to pay for management. here is your net cash flow, and here's your return, ROI, and you don't do anything. We do everything, but they want a 3-year lease because they're going to
Effie, would they give you an option to purchase, Effie?
They do give you no, you own it. You own it.
Oh,
You
oh,
buy
I'm
it at the
sorry. Okay.
beginning. So what's happening? They're not putting out their cash. Just like you said a moment ago,
I
Shawn,
see.
I'd be willing to, like buy a house for you if you want. So they're not in the real estate business when you actually analyze it. They're not owners. They're finding investors, and they're saying, which market, how much return do you want? How big should the place be? What kind of class do you want to get? And then they do it for you, which is similar to what Sam does in some ways. But he isn't looking for the investors. He's looking for the mentees, and he's calling it the inner circle or the white glove treatment. So you're buying into his mentorship. And for that mentorship, they are guaranteeing you one home that you will have purchased by the end of 12 months. These guys forget the mentorship. You don't need to know anything other than check us out. And here's who we are. Which market do you want to be in? How much money do you have to invest? What kind of net cash flow do you want? What return on your income do you want? This is passive. Okay. So 3-year commitment. At the end of the 3 years, they will go into a renegotiation with you to continue. They do all the vetting, they do everything, all the advertising. You just put out your money and then collect. So it's much, much more passive than like with Sam. He doesn't, Judd, help me out on this one. I think I'm right. He does not do the management unless you pay him extra to do the management, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so you're paying $30K just for the mentoring. Okay, you still have to put up that 40K or that 60K or 100K to get into the property. And if you want him to manage it, what's he charge? 15? Charges 15. So that's an interesting model. It's a slightly different one than the one that Shawn has talked about, and the different one than PadSplit is doing, and a different one that this company is doing. I have reached out to the CEO, and I've asked him to come and to have a conversation with me and to come. I'm not sure if I'd bring him on my What the Effie or on this Zoom here, but you guys are the ones that the core of co-living. It's just that I think it's going to blow a lot of people's minds. When they talk about passive real estate, here's a company that's saying it's totally passive. So I'm not sure where it would go and what his availability and time is and all that, if he even gets back to me. But I'm a bit of a bulldog, so I'll just keep persisting until he tells me to drop dead or he responds. So I bring this up, and I was going to bring this up because I find it interesting. We're at a stage, in my opinion, of where Airbnb was when it was small. So guys, a lot of us, I personally want to own property, and I want to own similar a class of property that Shawn's into. I want B plus, B plus, A minus. I want an appreciating property. And I also would love to have the kind of net numbers he has. I hadn't even thought about 3 beds to 1 room. Hadn't even entered my puny little mind. But neither had this model that this company is talking about. That just give them my money. I have the asset. It's mine. It's appreciating. I get the tax write-offs, but it's all hands off. If you choose to want to sell your property before the 3 years, they say you can inside their network because they've got that 3-year commitment from you. Therefore, they want to make some money on that sale because they're going to bring a new investor in to let you out, which is interesting because that means you're going to lose some money as far as I'm concerned. But it is an interesting model. So what are they doing? It's arbitrage. With the opportunity for them to actually sell your house if you decide you want to get out early. They've got the upper hand in arbitrage. So I thought, wow, this is rocking. This is another model. I'm not saying it's the one that we should do. I'm not saying that, it's right for anybody, but I'm curious. So I am sharing that to say I'm at the beginning stage of it, but I intend to learn more. And if any of you come across any interesting information in regards to co-living in the States or States and Canada, I'd be interested in knowing. I know there's a whole slew of stuff in Europe, but I'm not really interested in going to Europe right now, to deal with that. So just a
Effie,
thought.
what's the name of that company? Would you share that name if you
No,
didn't
I'm not
already? I
going to
didn't
share
catch
it yet until I know whether
Ah.
he's going to actually be willing to come forward, because I don't want him to necessarily benefit if he's not going to share. And that's what I'm
Sure.
going to tell him. You are
Gotcha.
unnamed, but you know what? Naming you will bring you some interest. Look, I am a giver, and I know that from bringing Sam on my podcast, he now got, I think there were about 10 to 12 people that signed up in this last 5-day challenge. And I would say that at least 4, maybe as many as 5 or 6 were from sub 2, were from the fact that they had come in contact with me. He had talked about referrals. He hasn't mentioned it since, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm not asking him to pay me because I wanted to help him. And that's okay with me. And some of those people that haven't signed up this time might sign up next time. So I am ready to take that knowledge that this is what happens and to say to a company, look, give me a referral link if I choose to do that, if I like it enough once I've talked to them, or you're going to benefit anyways, one way or another. Come and talk and help us learn. And if they get, I don't know what they are, if they're snotty and they feel, wow, we don't need that, fine. I'm not naming them. But that's just the hook I'm using to get them to come. All right. So any
Effie,
other
can I
questions or
ask? I
comments?
had somebody ask me in my group, in my network here, saying, "Is the recording of this episode available? When will it be available?"
Oh, yes, it is. It's available once it renders, and it takes a while for Zoom to render. It's going to, especially we're going well past an hour and a half. It's probably going to take like 2 hours to render, around that. And then I can upload it to my YouTube along with the other 2 that are
Okay.
up there. And uploading it is probably going to take about another hour. It takes a long time. Takes a long time.
Effie, if you want to call me, I can help you with the rendering speed.
I
Or
just
I'll talk to you
kind of,
offline.
to be honest, I kind of set it and walk away.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go up that learning curve, but I might take you up on it, because the one thing is you can't close it down. And once I closed it
Right.
down on another thing, I was like, ugh, got to start all over. But you know what? I should hire you and you should help me, but I really
No,
don't.
I'll just do it for the hell of it.
Yeah, but it's
Just
not
because
just
you've already
you
helped me
doing
out.
it. Me getting the file to you will take time, and then you got to
Right.
get it back. So that
Yeah.
takes time. It's like
There's another
when I
way that we
started
can
thinking
chat
about
offline.
it, I was like, and just do it. And I'm not going to be, I'm going to be careful about when I turn on record so that I don't have to edit. So yes, that's going to be up there. I have another announcement to make, please, guys. If you came in a little bit later, I already have my initial email list. If you want to be on the email list, drop your name, full name, phone number, and email, and I will add it on, because I'm posting in a number of different, Facebook groups. And I'm also, just from my own, I can't believe that I actually have a few people following me that aren't from any of these groups, but it's happening. So I would like to make it easy for everyone by also emailing the information, so you know that on Saturday morning you can wake up and that link will be in your box. So there's that re-announcement. And the last thing is that, besides, if you do decide you'd like to present, please reach out to me. I will not be doing this next Saturday because I'm going to be at Pace's Mastermind, and I don't want to miss. So the next Zoom that we will be doing will be 2 weeks from today, always noon EST because it's easy to remember. And, you know, I'm not having a difficulty in finding people to present, but if you would like to present, let me know. And if no one volunteers, that's not a problem. I have lots of people that can come forward. Any other last minute housekeeping duties? All right. So you saw that Shawn is offering a product. I think that's cool. Feel free to reach out and talk to him. Oh yeah. Feel free to video whatever and post. If you gained anything, go ahead and post. Oh, and I mustn't forget, I'm supposed to remind you guys to come and make comments. I know that it means you have to come back in a couple hours, but apparently I'm somewhat lagging in the comments section of YouTube. Facebook, it's no problem. It goes nuts. But YouTube, please come and comment on this presentation. If you learned anything, you know, all of that sort of thing. Okay.
So just add, you know, if anyone's like me, I hang up the phone and go, oh, I wish I would have asked that question. Right. So please, if something comes to mind, please don't hesitate to email, text, phone.
Don, is there another way to get in touch with you? So that link just goes to a form. Do you have any other contact info? Maybe you shared at the beginning and I missed that slide.
I don't know if I did or didn't, but I could.
And Manya, did you mean to send that to me? No, you sent it to
everyone.
Okay. Good.
Here.
I meant to do that.
Second.
Did I miss it, or how did the property get purchased? Financing wise.
Is that a question to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
yes.
didn't buy it. It's your
Yeah,
fault.
I didn't use all of my creative skills. I actually paid cash for those houses, my two houses, because I wasn't, you know, the one that runs the household and the business was my wife, right? And the purse strings particularly. So she's not quite as aggressive as I might be. And she said, look, I'm in on this, but I don't want to have that debt hovering over our head. I mean, what if PadSplit goes out of business? I mean, she literally was saying this. I'm like, oh, come on. How that's impossible to imagine. And of course, you know, it was only some months later that they, you know, the guy that had all the gold left, right? So it was, honestly, I wouldn't have want to been here if that would have happened and I had, you know, these two mortgage payments hanging over my head and empty houses and, you know, all those things. So it you know, the gods were good again, and they were watching over me, and we made that decision. Now the problem we have today is now we have.
I have to ask a question. When you said you paid cash, you mean cash?
Well, I didn't use greenbacks, but yeah, I didn't use any leverage.
How'd you do it if you didn't use greenbacks and you didn't leverage anything?
Well, I mean, I didn't bring it back. I actually had someone
wired it.
pay me.
He wired it. Yes, I know he wired
yeah.
it to me. But what I'm saying is, did you pay for that those houses using money in your accounts, bank accounts?
Yeah, so my wife and I have a pension plan. So this was retirement money that we just redirected, and we had access to it.
401k, something like that.
Right. In this case, it's a pension plan, but yeah, it's self-directed.
Okay.
So we can buy real estate and own it in that pension plan. So that was, you know, this was a long-term play. Again, so that was our calculus back then. I would do it entirely differently today, not because it was a mistake, but it worked then. But today, I mean, like anything, like I've learned other things I've learned the hard way. You know, this, by the way, you know, secret here, you know, money doesn't grow on trees. And at some point I run out of my own money. And I've done that before. And so for me to continue to grow my holdings, I got to get creative. And that's why we're in sub 2, right?
So, and that cash flow on that pro forma was not including a mortgage, I'm assuming, since you bought cash?
Correct. So that was unlevered cash on cash. So if I was using leverage, that cash on cash return would be what I would expect it to be. It would have to be much higher. So
good catch, Jimmy.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
probably
point.
skipped ahead in my notes and didn't cover that, but
Yeah, no, that's okay. In your performa, maybe a line item indicating that there was, we saw it, but we didn't, only Jimmy caught it. No mortgage payment.
yeah, yeah. And normally when I'm running that for my own edification, I have my calculator calculates levered and unkept levered cash and cash return. I just didn't, it's
Yeah.
because when we're borrowing money, we all borrow at different rates or different time. And so it just gets it more complicated for the purpose of this setting to try to explain
That's
all
true.
of that. But so it's easier to say, cash here compared to the alternatives. When you start adding leverage in there, it adds a whole nother complexity to it, the analysis. So I put my direct dial number and my email in the chat. If you want to take that, record it in your
That's great.
contacts, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll do my best to help any way I can.
Okay. I'd like to say thank you to everyone. And, I encourage you to talk about co-living as much as you can, because, vocalizing it helps to make it real, as does, this whole thing about a presentation and getting around other people. And also it may help someone else by getting their curiosity up. We really are at the beginning, guys. And what I wanted to say is, regardless of whether this company's CEO or representative comes and talks to us about the model that they're putting forward, which is you bring your money, we will help you buy the house. You own the house. We have a 3-year lease. We do everything. We just send you a check. And by the way, you can't break that lease. If you want to sell it, you can sell it, but you got to sell it to somebody in our network, and we'll help you, and you can bet they're going to pay. But I want you guys and us to start thinking, what other ways are there ways to make money in this co-living? For example,
if I may, sorry.
Just one
Sorry,
sec. For
sorry.
example,
For sure.
Jared, you have IT. Okay, I'm way jumping now, but I had realized that Airbnb is where that makes the money, or AirDNA. There's a hell of a lot of money to be made in software companies like AirDNA that scrapes and tells you where's the best place to buy. Here are the facts, and it's not a cheap service to have. There's a lot of ways to make money because this co-living is patchy and small. It has PadSplit small. Sorry, when you look at big companies, they're teeny. We're teeny. They're all over the place. So getting in on this floor with any kind of concepts, if you are committed, like, Shawn says, if you're committed, I think there could be huge payoffs. But that's just, I'm encouraging you guys to think. Jared, you have a question?
I'd mentioned this when I did my presentation, but I've got a bunch of former employees of mine at Intel that are watching me. And if this proves out, like I think it will, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like you'd mentioned that company, as far as doing this for them, because I'm doing this for myself to learn, but I'm also doing it for a potential future career, like doing this for other people. They're working W-2s, they don't have time for it. Half of them trust me, the other half are interested. And so that's funny that you guys brought that up, because that's exactly what I'm doing. I just didn't really
Great.
come out and say it.
Oh, well, don't be
Also
afraid.
on the
You know what,
software.
guys? Don't worry about competition, because
Oh, I'm not worried about
collaboration gets
competition. I
us so
just,
much further. And the sooner you say it, the more real it becomes. And
wait,
I'm super excited that I have found this company. Hopefully they'll come, and then you can see how they're doing it, and you can think and learn. There is enough businesses in America and in this little market that there should be no fear about, oh, I'm going to lose something by sharing. I think that's
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that was more of, I don't have it fully baked yet. Also, you'd mentioned
Right.
something key there too, as far as software. I'm talking to a few people. There's a guy you guys might know, Reventure app, Nick. I'm trying to get him when he opens, he's going paywall here at the end of the month or in a couple of days. And I want to make sure he has an API for geeks out there, advanced programmable interface. So that way you can leverage his app that he's already built to do exactly that for co-living, right? So instead of
What is
scraping
Reventure app?
it's a app that Nick bet. He's on Reventure. He's on YouTube. I forget he does all the data mining.
Oh, I know who you mean.
He's an
The
aggregate, yeah.
pessimist, right? He's a pessimist.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty pessimistic.
And
But
he's
the
very
app is
attuned to
nice,
data. Yeah.
right? So but anyway, yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking the exact same thing, and I can get help from my team at my old team at Intel to help me
Mhm.
build it.
Yeah,
So
that's
anyway,
true. That's true. What occurs to me is that it's going to require a lot of money.
maybe not as much as you think. With the AI
No,
that's
I
out
have
there.
an idea that Airbnb has spent a shitload on their platform.
But you got to remember, sorry, we're getting real into the weeds here, but they built that at a time when AI wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
True, true.
So
Hey, you know what?
there's
You and I
economies
should
of scale.
talk about this
Yeah.
offline so that these
Yeah,
guys don't
sorry.
all want in on the deal. No, I'm just
Right.
talking out of both sides of
Preferred
my
shares.
I'm just totally
If I may add, and I only know this third hand, but I have spoken to the people who were involved directly in this with PadSplit. PadSplit tried to do this turnkey thing in the past. They've abandoned it. So
I know.
I think that's more about what they're geared to do or not do. And they realized rather quickly that they were making more of a mess for themselves than solving any problems or bringing any value. So understanding the development and the project management side of things in the light construction space is highly important. You know, we all look at these things and go, well, that makes sense. Let me try that. But, you know, there's, you know, some cautionary tales there as well. And they learned that the hard way.
Co-living might be a narrow niche as far as a lot of people are concerned, just like short-term rentals were initially. And we have seen that it's really, really wide. You know, I'm looking at senior co-living, it's down here, right? Others are looking at, you know, a teenage, what do you call them? Sports camps and stuff like that. It's down here. It's very wide. So yeah, you're right. Once you decide what is it that you're doing, you do need to put your blinders on and go deep. And this venue that we're in right here is really just an opportunity to keep it, learn from each other and keep it as wide so that we can be curious. And, you know, that may spark a different direction for any given person, but I'm not trying to feed into the squirrel game, but you know, it's just about it's spreading the word, building a community so that you know, the word co-living isn't like, what's that?
If I may just make one closing comment here, and only just to set this, make sure it didn't get misconstrued, because it has come back at me before in the past, and I'm suggesting it would happen here, but so my experience with PadSplit was a good one, other than it was a circumstantial thing. And I continue to be an advocate for what they do and support what they do. I'm so any of my you know experience that was sort of, again, circumstantial in a moment in time, that shouldn't be understood or construed as an indictment against what they do. I think they do a good job in what they do.
No, I'm sure if
I didn't
Atticus
say
watches
you. I
this
just want to
video,
make sure
he's gonna know that you are a supporter and that they
Absolutely.
messed up and that they're trying to get things cleaned up on their own end. That's all.
And they have.
Growing
They
pains.
have. It was just
Growing pains.
Yeah, absolutely is what
Yep.
it was.
Yep. But thank you for saying it though too.
Sure.
All right, guys. I'm gonna say goodbye 2 weeks from now. So I won't be posting for next week. Contact me if you want to present. And I wish you a great weekend. See you. Take care. Bye-bye. And thank you, Shawn.
You're
Thank you,
welcome,
Shawn.
anytime.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.